hopefully knows or is learning that what defines us is what does lie beneath our surface. That is, contributes to the impact that we make on our world and the world that other people live in. How we take care of ourselves, how we take care of people we love. And I got to tell you something, guys. It's been a couple of weeks since I've talked to you here. If you're listening to this at a later time, it is September. I don't know what it is. I think it's like, I don't know, the 20th. 20th sounds good. We'll go with September 20th. It's been a rough couple of weeks around here. If you're listening, on a regular basis, or if you've listened before, you guys know I'm a passionate animal advocate. I share my life with a band of misfits here. But I'll tell you, it's misfit perfection. It truly is. They're all perfect in their own right. And sadly, we lost another member of the four-legged production staff since I last came to you live. And it's been a tough month here. It's been a little apocalyptic. Actually kind of referred to it as the September Holocaust, and that is, believe me, that is a very personal thing. It's a very individual thing. It has nothing to do with the use of that word. It's just a word I'm borrowing to describe what basically happened here to our family here in the last couple of weeks. It's been a really tough thing. I've been doing a lot of research about grief, and as much as it's kind of a sad topic to take, 52 or 53 or how many minutes we got left here and talk about grief, but given the fact that I'm well researched on the subject right now, I thought, because it does define us. The people who come in and out of our lives, they do define us. Animal lovers, animal advocates, animal rescuers, the pets, the four-legged family members who come in and out of our lives, they define us too, especially the rescuers and the advocates. And believe me, I'm not taking these pet lovers out of the equation who don't rescue, who don't advocate. Because if you have shared your life with a little critter, you know that when they are taken from you, that is a bad day. That sucks. I read the other day that the only thing wrong with dogs is that they don't live forever. That unfortunately it's the only thing wrong with cats, too. It's the only thing wrong with anything that we share our life with, is that there's always that chance that we might outlive something or someone who we love very much, and that has happened to me twice in this last month, and it stinks. But it's very individualized. I heard somebody just the other day say, so-and-so lost her husband, and it's only been 6 months. She hadn't gotten through the year, and I thought, the year? That was news to me because, and it's not to put this person down because it's someone I hold in very high regard, but I wasn't aware that there was a shelf life. And here's the thing, guys, there isn't. Loving something or someone is very individual. We all choose to do it in our own way. Some of us love more deeply than others. Personally, right now, I don't recommend that, only because it's so traumatizing when they go, and I'm kidding, just so you know. It's still worth it. Somebody said to me earlier this year while doing a theater production, said the phrase, feeling all the feels. And I got to tell you something, that stinks. That is painful. But if you don't do that, if you don't hurt so deeply when you lose something, you miss what happens before, because you also miss that opportunity to love that deeply. And if you close yourself off, and I'm not a psychologist, guys, I'm not going to say that I am, I'm not a counselor. I've just been here for a while. I'm not going to say exactly how long, but a long time. And I've learned a lot of things. And I think you're kind of stingy and selfish if you don't impart some of that knowledge and that wisdom on the people with whom you share your life. If you know something, knowledge is only power if you share it. A lot of people in business don't know that, and maybe hopefully they're listening to this show. Knowledge becomes powerful when you share it. And this is not my first trip down grief highway. I've been down this road before. I've been down it much more deeply than I am right now. I've talked about this before. I lost my father in 2006 to cancer. Let me tell you something, that sucked. I don't recommend that, but we don't get to choose. That was a really tough time. So I've journeyed down this road before. And, grief is always hiring. And let me tell you, if you want to, it'll take you in. It welcomes you in like a warm blanket. And if you choose to, you can stay there for a really, really, really long time. Now, I stayed there for 30 minutes today. And I got to tell you, that was long enough. And that was just a personal thing for me. I'm not telling you how long to cry. I'm not telling you how long to hurt, because it's different for everybody. And a lot of that is, the more deeply you care, the more deeply you hurt. Still better to care. So if you have the opportunity to do one or the other, care. I would strongly recommend that. And I'm just saying that as a human, not as a psychologist, not as a counselor. But I sunk down in that for about 30 minutes today, and that's because, there's nothing, few things sadder to any pet lover or pet parent than going to the veterinarian and picking up their pet in a box. I guess it's all right if your pet is like a hamster and is coming home in a box, but, if your pet is coming home, in a bag, in a box, it kind of stinks. And that happened this morning. And, I got to tell you, I do real estate for a living now, in addition to being a writer, and I know you're rolling your eyes. And I look at these veterinary people, and I think to myself, I don't know how they can do this. I can barely call somebody and tell them that their septic sucks. I don't know how these people look into the grief-stricken, ashen faces of pet parents every day of the week and deliver bad news and hand over ashes and kitties in boxes. I don't know how they do it. So the hats off to them for being able to keep any level of mental capacity while they're handing a grief-stricken parent their pet, reduced to ashes in a little wooden box. And I got to tell you something, it's a nice box, but I'd still rather have him on his pet bed. So that was kind of a sucky thing for this morning. But, like I said, I've done a lot of research this past week, and I did a lot of research when my dad passed away, too. And one of the floor production staff is announcing the need to depart. There's a door. Okay. I don't know about you guys. I'm assuming if you listen to my show, because I talk about pets so much, that you guys probably like pets. If you don't, you probably don't listen to the show anymore, because it's like, oh my God, that cat lady's talking about pets again. But you know how it is if you have a dog. The dog wants to go to the door. You open the door, the dog goes out. 2 minutes later, the dog is whining on the other side of the door. The only thing that's changed is geography. The behavior is the same. You whine on one side of the door, your human opens the door, you go on the other side, you look at the door, and you start whining again. I don't get this. I don't speak dog. I wish I could just for a little while. Certainly wish I could have in the last couple of weeks, where maybe somebody could have said, I don't feel right, I think something's going to happen. But that didn't take place. But in any event, okay, he is no longer at the door because it was enough to walk or whine and walk away. So that moment has passed. Let me go back to the little space here that is my studio, and we'll get back to business here. I got to tell you, guys, life goes on, and I can't remember who made the quote, and because I've read so many things on my Facebook, I got to tell you, I actually thought I lost you guys. No, I think you're still there. Okay. I don't know. I'm a technological dingbat at times, and I have the worst phone. I probably don't have the worst phone. As a matter of fact, I actually saw a rotary phone the other day. Now, I know there's probably people out there who do not know what this thing is. Believe it or not, actually, if you don't know what a rotary phone is, Google it. So if you don't know what Google is, well, I guess probably I can't really help you at that point. But, all right, the technological glitch has passed. We're still connected. The phone is by some miracle still working. And I'm still live, coming to you from upstate New York. I got to tell you, it's beautiful up here. And earlier today, I thought we were going to get a little rain. It didn't happen. I figured the sky would just open up while I was walking my dog. And, in a very macabre way, which means he's in a bag, in a box, and I'm walking along. That was not the dog walking experience I would have wanted for myself today, but that's what happened. But let's see, where was I going before the whole, oh my gosh, I think my phone just glitched. Well, I think I was talking about, you know what, it doesn't matter. It's my show. I can go anywhere I want with this thing. So let's just go on to the next thing. So anyway, I'm like ass deep in grief here, and I'm not afraid to say that. I'm hurting. I am kind of getting back into, the swing of things, so to speak, and I'm getting back to being amongst the living, and I no longer cry the minute I wake up in the morning, which is nice. You get to the point where you start to feel a little bit better, and it takes a lot of time. It's going to take a certain amount of time for me. It's, if you're going through the same thing, number one, I'm sorry. It's terrible to have to experience that, but it is a part of life, and if you don't get this part, it means you didn't get all the good parts that came before. So if you're in it, like I'm in it right now, try to take a step away from it just long enough to have gratitude, and that is the hardest thing. I remember when I lost my dad, and, because you think about that kind of thing all the time. We do, because those people help to shape who we are. And that's why, even though you're all like, oh my gosh, she's talking about pets again, but you know what? It's okay to talk about these things, and I want to talk about these things because it actually ties in nicely to the show. Because what we do, our experiences, the people, whether they're two-legged or four-legged, because I see my four-legged folks as little people. They're little furry people who have a weird way of communicating, and they feel the need to lick my eyelids. I don't get that, but that's just the way they behave. But those people, two-legged or four-legged, they shape us. They help us to become who we are. And realistically, guys, who we are, it doesn't have anything to do with the jewelry we wear, the scarves we wear, whether or not our tie costs $8 at Burlington Coat Factory or, $400 because it's the Hermes or whatever. That's not what defines us as people. It's those people and friends of all shapes and sizes that come and go throughout our lives. So, it kind of ties in nicely. So I'm glad I have this opportunity to talk about this, because I'll tell you, you spend 2 weeks talking about Fluffy, and realistically, what happens? And you know this if you've ever lost Fluffy. And just so you know, my dog's name was not Fluffy. My dog's name was Gabriel. If your dog's name is Fluffy, that's fine. Maybe he's Fluffy. It's descriptive. You can name your dog whatever you want. There are some names that probably are not appropriate. You probably know what they are. But anyway, I'm losing my train of thought a lot. And I'll tell you, grief will do that to you. I made an expression the other day, and I said, I'm like stupid sad. And I was like stupid sad. Like, I would start to say something, and I would just stop in the middle. Which, if you know me personally, that frequently does happen, because sometimes my brain goes faster than the rest of my body, especially as the body starts to get older. But I was doing that with greater frequency. Like, I would just stop in the middle because I could no longer remember what I was going to say. Clearly, that's not over, because it's happening here live tonight on Wicked Naked. But, that's the beauty of having a show. But, I was grateful for this opportunity to talk to you guys, because what I was saying, by some miracle I remembered a minute and 17 seconds ago, is that after you've talked about Fluffy for 2 weeks, people start to look at you, and you know the look, because we all have hot topics in our lives that we want to talk about, and we all know that look we get from our friends and colleagues and other people with whom we share our lives. We're getting the look that, oh my gosh, she's talking about Fluffy again. She's talking about Fluffy again. Oh, what do we do? Can we just walk away? Can we change the subject? Would that be rude? If you could read people's minds, that is what they would be thinking. Holy crap, she's talking about Fluffy again. After a while, it does get to the point where people with whom you share your life just really don't want you to talk about Fluffy anymore. And that's going to happen, guys. And I'll tell you something. If you want to talk about Fluffy, find me on Facebook at Cat Robinson and send me a friend request and a follow-up message. Because let me tell you something. I will let you talk about Fluffy because I totally understand. Now, I am blessed with probably the greatest, one of the greatest. Yours might be better. I don't want to get into a battle here. One of the greatest support systems for a person could ever hope to have, because I have actually had people engage me in conversation about my Fluffy, who is named Gabriel, and my other Fluffy, who died 1 week before Gabriel, and her name was Bean. She was a 13-year-old kitty, very soon to be 14. The universe decided that that wasn't going to happen. And Gabriel was 10 going on 45, because he was very wise and very sensitive and very much a gentleman. And I'll tell you guys, get the Kleenex out, because I'm going to try to tell the story. If I get a little, foggy, it's because it's ragweed season, of course. It's not because I'm, emotional dynamite right now, which I have to admit I am. But I'll tell you, I've gotten kind of to the point where I could step back a little bit and say, you know what, I'm grateful. And I'm appreciative. And I was lucky that despite the intense grief of a very recent loss, which, the first few minutes are just god-awful because you can't believe it happened, and you're in shock, and you're making an absolute, spectacle of yourself because you're sobbing, like somebody who got dumped on prom night, and you can't stop yourself. You couldn't if you tried, and, your nose is running down your shirt, and thankfully we've all been there. And if we're lucky, we have people with us who totally understand that she has snot dripping off of her chin, and I forgive her because I've done that too, because I'm human, and I have felt, and I have lost, and I have sobbed, and I have been through this. So those first few minutes are terrible. But miraculously, it was even in those first few minutes that I had to step back just as a spectator for a moment and say, all right, this has got to be in the top 5 of the worst nights of my entire life. And it is. It was. It was a horrifying, traumatic night to lose my friend in the way that I lost my friend. And, we were at the veterinarian on an emergency call, and it's dark out, and, clearly these people probably want to go home, but they do what they do because they love to take care of animals, and they realize that with that comes urgent and emergent care. And, we're gathered around this poor, clearly failing 60-some-pound dog, and, they had taken laboratory testing, and the testing, comes back in X number of minutes, which is in itself a technological and, medical miracle, because you used to have to wait eons for that kind of, result to come forth. And, they pull the results off of whatever printer it printed on, and they come to look at you, they walk toward you, and they're clearly, wearing an expression that says to you without words, this shit ain't good. And they were, they were looking at their paper, and they were looking at me, and it was clear that whatever was coming, it was definitely not going to be like Brad said. It was not going to be like, cotton candy and flowers. It was going to be something that was going to be bad, and I didn't want to hear it. And as they spoke, it became very obvious to me that I was going to have to make some very, very difficult decisions. And, my little laying on the table, completely unresponsive, and he made a little noise. And a moment later, the veterinarian walked over and, put a stethoscope to my buddy's little heart. And it wasn't beating anymore. And he had gone. He was gone. And, how lucky was I to be able to spend my life, a part of my life, with this little 4-legged guy who, in his final moments, as he lay dying and broken and pretty much done, that somewhere in there, he just decided, I'm not going to make her do that. I'm not going to make her do that. And even in that first few minutes, when it's so raw, and you're sure you're watching reality TV because what you just witnessed certainly couldn't be happening to you. I mean, for God's sake, you're compassionate and kind, and you recycle. The universe would never dish you up a bowl of shit that big. But sometimes, guys, I'm sorry to say, it just does. And, I'm standing there and I'm, snotty and miserable and broken and crying and, just a big mushy pile of, radio show host. And how cool that I was able to step away in that moment and say, wasn't I lucky? Wasn't I lucky that I got to have this little guy? This little guy who was so dignified and had so much integrity that he was willing to do that for me in the final moments. And, okay, here's where it gets really good. I just told the story, and I don't know, you might be rolling your eyes because I'm talking about, but you know something? I'm not crying. And guys, grief is like that. Eventually you get to the point where you can tell the fluffy story, and you're not a big, losing, snotty pile of radio show host or whatever it is you do. And you know what? That's the journey. That's the process. Part of my support staff is my cousin. And my cousin is a school counselor. She has a master's, I believe it's in psychology. If she's listening and I'm wrong, I'm sorry, I don't know. That is what I think you do because, you do that well. So it just, makes sense that that's what it is. But she said to me, allow yourself to go through the process. And it is a process. Guys, if you've lost anybody, if you've lost anything, and if you've been on the earth more than a little while, you probably have because it's part of, it's part of the journey. As you go through that map, along that map that is your life, a lot of times it's rainbows and cotton candy, and it's really good stuff, but somewhere along the way, something's going to happen. And it's going to be tough, and you're going to be sad, and it is a process. Don't close yourself up. Don't close yourself off because, I have 4 other 4-legged people in my life, and I had 6. Then I had 5, now I have 4. I'm going to tell you something. If in a week's time I only got 3, I'm never recycling again. And that's just my position because then the universe is just miserable. The universe is just nasty and unkind and cruel. And please don't take it from me right now. I'm not going to be able to take that. So hopefully we're okay. But, there were 6, and then there were 5, and then there were 4. But if there weren't 4, let's just say for a moment that there wasn't 4. I come out of the veterinarian, with my, snot on my sleeve, and my friend standing there looking like his dog just died too. Because when you're caring and compassionate, and you go through that with your friend, you certainly feel it and you let it in, and his expression wasn't much different than mine, although he didn't have snot on his sleeve. But I can imagine myself coming out of there and thinking, I'm closed up. This store has just closed. If you guys hear that, that's actually like massive dog sneezing going on in the background. That is just a symphony here. The symphony. Are you all done? Can I go back to what I was doing? Is it the ragweed? I don't know. He is just completely closed mouth tonight. He's not talking. So, anyway, back to the show. God, I gotta tell you, I'm so stupid sad. Maybe I should have drank the entire cup of coffee instead of just 2/3 of it. All right, 1/3 of it. What in the world was I talking about? Other than obviously I was talking about fluffy. I think I was talking about closing yourself up. Guys, don't do that. It's better to lay it all out there and, feel. And I can imagine in that moment I might have said never again. Because I've experienced that with, I hang out with people who like fluffies. And, I got to tell you, I do. Pet people generally tend to migrate to pet people. You show pictures of your kids. I show pictures of my cat. It's just the way I am. And, I've had people in my life who have lost, the furry friends that they've shared their life with. And I've heard them say never again, I'm not getting another cat, I'm not getting another hamster, I'm not getting another ferret, whatever it is that they chose to spend their life with. And I could totally see myself doing that. You come out and Your heart is, it's like somebody ripped your heart out of your chest, tore it in a million pieces, put it back in your hand and say, hey, good luck with that shit. It really does feel like that. And I can see that store just kind of closing down. You know what? I'm not going to do this again. It's too hard. It hurts too much. You know what? I'm going to do it again. I am committed to saving lives one at a time. Am I going to do it right now? No, I'm not going to do it right now, guys. And I'll tell you why I'm not going to do it right now. Is because basically my digs are too small for who I got here now. Cats and dogs and people are just falling over themselves here. But eventually I will have a larger place to call home, and I'm sure that I will expand my family once again. I will tell you, I could have had like 8 dogs in the last, 3 days. Like, hey, I heard about your dog. Yeah. And I actually got to the point where I started to be like sarcastic, like pissy cat about it. Because I was like, hey, I'm sorry to hear about your dog. And I'm like, I don't want to take your dog. I just don't want to take your dog. And that was like the catchphrase for everything. Like, they could have been saying, do you want fries with that? Which, I don't because, I'm trying to get skinny. But I would have said, no, I don't want to take your dog. But it was kind of funny because a colleague actually had a situation where somebody needed to rehome a dog. So that was the one moment where I said, no, I'm sorry, I don't want your dog. And that actually kind of ended the conversation because that really kind of was the question. But, I could have had 8. And, if you network on social networking with any kind of animal advocacy, animal transport, animal rescue, you guys know I could have had 1 million dogs in the last 8 days. Because unfortunately, there's millions of dogs who need homes right now. And, if all my fluffy guys were gone, I probably would do that because, you wouldn't think when there's still 4 that there would be such a vacancy. But there is. You come home and, you got the blanket and you get sun on your sleeve and, you're carrying your heart in your hand because that's where they just put it when they ripped it out and tore it to shreds. And, you come home and, it's bad enough to stand in the parking lot and look at your friend and try to process what just happened. And then you get to go home. And home is where, that little 4-legged person would normally be waiting for you. And they're not there. And you wouldn't think that it would leave such a vacancy, but guys, it really, really and truly does. And, the more I network socially, the more disgusted I am basically on how people treat their companion animals. I mean, what is up with that? I was talking to a friend of mine the other day, and we were talking about a situation, and it was a more generalized conversation than, oh my God, I can't believe Billy did this. Because it wasn't about that. It was just about, the lack of ethics and the lack of moral compass. And so many things have happened lately, and so many things happen every day to make us truly question, the people with whom we share our lives. And I'm not just saying the people we work with, the people we see in the grocery store. I'm not saying, the people, that are covered around our Thanksgiving table. I'm talking about the people with whom we share our world. There are some seriously screwed up people out there. And I got to tell you something. I don't know where the hell these people grew up, but they definitely didn't grow up in upstate New York under the careful tutelage of my parents. Because if I had behaved like that, like a lot of these people are behaving, and sadly it's a lot of young people, I'm like, I wouldn't have had to worry about going through any type of juvenile system. I wouldn't have had to worry about what might happen when CPS got a hold of it, which if you're listening and you don't know what that is Child Protective Services. I wouldn't have had to worry about that. I mean, my parents would have killed me. My parents would have killed me. I mean, they probably would have given me a licking, which you probably know what a licking is. And I got to tell you something. They would have done it rightly so. Because I can't, guys, and I know I'm getting off the fluffy thing now. You can all relax. I'm not going to talk about the fluffy for a couple minutes here. I'm going to eventually talk about something similar, but you'll forgive me for that because it's a hot topic, especially if you're an animal advocate right now. But you know what? I think you guys can all agree with me. You look at your world, and you look at the behavior of some of the people with whom you share your world, and you think to yourself, what in the name of all that's holy is wrong with these people? You know, the line between right and wrong, guys, is always a bit blurry. We know that it is, and sometimes it's a little right from wrong, and sometimes it's a big right from wrong. You know, and those things a lot of times, they do make the news, whether they make the news that we view on television, whether they make the news that we view, you know, read in periodicals, whether or not they make social media news because someone's blogging about it. You know, the information is so readily available now that, you know, I don't think necessarily that the world has gotten so much more horrible, but I fear that we're going in that direction. But I think a lot of those stories are now so more readily available. You know, a teenager tortures a turtle. You know, 10 years ago we might not have known that. Now we do. You know, because somebody writes a story about it and submits it to the Examiner, or somebody blogs about it, or it's on some pet-related, you know, social media site, and we hear about these things and we think to ourselves, who the hell is raising these thugs? You know, I can't help but think like that. I don't want to go out there, you know, go in my head, so to speak, and start putting down parents who I don't know, but I'm thinking to myself, come on, who raised these thugs? Because I'm telling you something. Me and my sister and my brother, we would not have been doing that because we would have gotten killed. There's no way that shit could have flown under the roof where I grew up. We just didn't do that. You know, now if you thank your kid in the checkout line because they're screaming because they want a Kit Kat, somebody's on their cell phone turning you in. You know, I'm not going to have a debate, which actually I don't think it qualifies as a debate if I'm the only one talking and you guys are just listening. But I don't, you know, it could become a debate, of course, if you friend me on Facebook and start sending me messages about what I'm talking about, then it's a debate. But, I mean, feel free to debate it with, you know, whoever you share your life with after the show. But I'm not in a situation where I'm trying to, you know, cause a ruckus or, you know, generate hate mail. But, you know, I got to tell you, I am whooping every once in a while. You know, we had a thing in our house called the stick. You want to talk about raising the terrorism level. That raised the terrorism level under my roof. Because when she got the stick, everybody took cover. You talk about having your to-go bag ready, you grab your to-go bag and you hid in your room. Because it was coming. And I got to tell you something. Was it the right thing to do? I don't know. I'm not going to debate that. You know, but I'll tell you something. It's made us three pretty good people. You know, did we always do the right thing? I like to think that we do. You know, we make fairly good decisions. Have we always made every good decision out there? No. We've done some pretty stupid shit. And that's primarily because we are human. Because we are human, we have free will. Because we have varying IQs. We're all pretty smart, but we have varying IQs. I'm a lot like my dad. You know, high IQ, sometimes low common sense, which means in your head it works great. In reality, somebody ends up calling 911. So we have varying levels of intelligence and various life experiences. But I got to tell you, myself and my siblings, we're all doing okay. You know, we're not doing bad things. We're not breaking laws. We're not criminals. We're not incarcerated. My sister works in a jail, which basically means none of the rest of us are going there because we don't want that to happen. But we do what we call fly right. And, you know, guys, if you're advocates, and I kind of think probably some of you who listen to my show probably have some level of interest in advocacy because I talk about it a lot. You know, I have people on the show who talk about it a lot. So if you're coming back to listen again and again, it might be because you have an interest in the topics that we cover. So if you have an interest in the topics that we cover and you're kind of in the whole advocate game, number one, I'm sorry that you're having trouble sleeping because you probably are because we see some ghastly, ungodly things. I'm sorry. You can't unsee something. You can't unring a bell, as they say. So I'm sorry about your Ambien habits because because, good Lord, who could sleep after you see half the stuff we do? But if you're coming back to visit again and again, you're probably interested in some of these topics. And I got to tell you, I got a laptop flashing here in front of me because we all do. You know, we connect to our world. You know, we don't do it the way we used to. You know, you don't go see people in a, you know, square dance. I don't know. I think people still square dance, so please don't send me hate mail. Square dancing is kind of fun, and it looks like it burns a ton of calories, so just keep doing it because that's really good. But, you know, we don't see people the way we used to see people. We don't connect with our world the way we used to connect with our world. Now, a lot of us connect with our world through computers and devices and, you know, touch pads and iPads and all that other stuff, and Kindles. And, well, I have this laptop. Kind of call it Buttercup, but its real name, I got to tell you guys, is Shitty Buttercup. And I am really letting you into my circle by telling you that. Because I actually used to call it just shitty. I mean, because it is. It's like fluffy. It's simply an adjective that I turned into a name. Because it is. It is the most fabulously ridiculous, poorly functioning, technological piece of crap to ever roll off the assembly line anywhere. All right, I'm sorry. I know I've hurt your feelings. Why is the cursor moving? So, coming alive. But anyway, so I called this thing shitty. And a friend of mine said, you know what, maybe you shouldn't call it that. Maybe you should call it something nicer. So I said, all right, I'll call it Buttercup. So basically now I just called it Computers Shitty Buttercup. So I am letting you into the inner sanctum by telling you that, guys. But you know what? You probably have bad names for your computers, too, because they're fabulous when they work. When they don't work, you want to fling them, you know, into the road like a discus. You want to spin around like a freaking Olympian and just shove the thing by way of a fling out into traffic, and hopefully, if you're lucky, a garbage truck will run over it. We've all been there. But anyway, I'm looking at this thing right now because I do connect with my world a lot of times through social media. That's how advocates connect with each other. That's how authors connect with readers. That's how friends connect with friends who are long distances away. That's how we connect with our world now. And I got to tell you, the thing that's looking back at me right now is a picture of this woman covering her face, because God forbid anybody know that she is some POS who left her battered, dying, fluffy little dog on the side of the road in a shopping bag, and then because she didn't want her kids to be fat, she went and bought another puppy. She didn't take the dog to the vet because she couldn't afford it. But because she didn't want her kids to be fat, she went and bought him a puppy. Lady, I'm telling you something. If you were in front of me in Walmart, I would be seriously ramming you with my cart right now. You know, it troubles me, guys. And I'm sure if you thought about it, it would trouble you too. And maybe it troubles you without you thinking about it. But these are the people with whom we share our world. You put your battered dog. And clearly the dog wasn't battered because it came that way. Somebody did it. Now, I don't know if she did it. But I don't know that she didn't. So, if you beat the thing up and put it in a bag and dumped it somewhere because you didn't want anybody to know you did it, and then you said it was okay because it was just a dog, lady, you need to adjust your moral compass. I wish my dad was still alive. Because what you really need to do is you really need to come and be raised by my parents for a few days. Because if you were raised by my parents, you would be doing that. I mean, what is wrong with someone who does that? You know, the only bright spot in this horrible story, and it actually happened in downstate New York. This woman, the story I just told you guys is true. You know, it wasn't some fictional made-up story because I'm an author and I'm stupid sad right now, but I just made it up because I was tired of talking about my dead dog and cat. This is a real story. This really happened. I'm not making this up. This really did happen. You know, it's troubling to think that people actually behave in this manner. Now, you know, I'm sorry, guys, but the line between right and wrong in that situation, that's not blurry. That's freaking fluorescent. That line can be seen from the freaking Space Center. It can be, because it's glaring. You don't do stuff like that. You don't do things like that. You don't behave in a manner that is just so ethically and morally wrong. You don't do that. Don't do that shit. I mean, obviously somebody's going to find out. Obviously somebody's going to find out. I mean, for God's sake, you can't go to the corner because you want to sneak a pack of cigarettes without somebody finding out about it. We live in a very visible world. It's very hard to do anything and not have somebody know about it. And my mother and my brother happen to live upstairs. And I'm telling you something, I cannot be gone 7 minutes without somebody knowing I'm gone. You can't do stuff like that. You're not going to get away with it. And then, then we've got the part of the story that's equally as troubling, guys. They didn't want my kid to be sad. So I went out and I bought another puppy. It's not so much I bought another puppy that's bothering me. It's because this douchebag is imparting this level of wisdom, this behavior, this total lack of moral compass. And somebody was relying upon her to show them the difference between right and wrong. Guys, let me tell you something. I don't mean to take my show in a direction that suddenly makes you feel like you're listening to the female version of Dr. Phil. But that should scare you. That should scare you. I mean, when did we... I don't know. I don't want to say we all stopped being parents. Because I'll tell you something. I have a lot of people in my life who have a very healthy relationship with their children. I have people in my life who have a very healthy relationship with their parents. I have people in my life who have a very healthy relationship with their significant other, with their friends, with their work colleagues. I'm lucky. I have good relationships with the people with whom I share my life. And I have people in my life who have equally good relationships with the people with whom they share their life. I got a lot of good examples going on right around me. That makes me very, very lucky. Because I'll tell you something, if I was relying upon the public at large, I would be in serious trouble. Guys, I don't get it. I left that veterinary office, well, I don't know, I guess it's 9 days ago. Oh, God, it was 9 days ago, almost to the minute. I had to look at the clock, didn't I? Yeah, I'd say we got there about 9 days ago, right to the minute. The actual event happened about an hour later. So in an hour, guys, it'll be like 9 days to the minute. But what I'm basically saying is I left there with, like, my heart ripped out in a little sack, and I was holding it in my hand. And I'm thinking to myself, when am I going to know this? How do I function like a normal person who no longer has a heart who's carrying it in their hand? It's dripping all over. Oh, look, it's still beating. How about that? That can't possibly be real. Not after what I just went through. Because I was so broken-hearted over the loss of my little buddy. My world fell apart in that instant. I'm lucky. I have a very good support system. I have otherwise a very good life. And I feel a little bit more put together than I did 9 days ago. But I was just dying inside. I'd lost my little friend. And it hurts so much. It hurts so much that I hope it doesn't happen again right away. It will always hurt a little bit, but it'll get less and less and less as time goes by. I'll never be able to look at that box over there. It's like 10 feet away. I'm kind of looking at it now. Because it's got my little buddy inside, what's left of him. It's always going to hurt a little bit. It's always going to be impactful a little bit. But I think to myself, as traumatic as it was dignified. I came home. I found him. He was in trouble. I called a friend. We engaged with a veterinarian who was still there. It was a very difficult thing, but we got him in the car, and we got him there. We got him the help he needed. Sadly, he didn't survive. But we did what we needed to do. We did the right thing for our little friend. And it was gut-wrenching. It was. It was not the outcome that we would have wanted, but guys, we don't get to choose that. It happens the way it's going to happen. I wish it had been different. It wasn't. I may not recycle for a couple of days just because just repeating it makes me very angry, but I probably will recycle because it's possible. But it was horrifying, and I did not want that to happen to my little friend. I cannot imagine taking my little friend and putting him in a bag and dropping him off somewhere and just walking away. Because, guys, that's not what we do. If you've got a reasonable moral compass, that is not the direction that moral compass is going to lead you in should you be faced with that kind of a traumatic situation. You don't do that. I'm sorry. You know what? I'm not going to preface this with that because, you know what, guys? I'm not sorry. I'm not sorry. I'm absolutely not sorry. I'm all right. I'm not going to say I'm not sorry again. But I'm not sorry. I want to strangle this woman. Now, I know the difference between right and wrong. I know that the line between being where I am right now and strangling this woman, there's a line between that. I can see that line. I'm not going to cross it because my mother's still alive and she'd kill me. But it's more than that because I know that that's not the right thing to do. That person has some serious demons because that's the wrong choice. I just don't get it. I don't get it. But you know what? If it inspires me to do anything, it inspires me to use that energy that I would use strangling that woman. Because I have not done that. I wanted to once because I have some exes in my past, and they are all still alive, just so y'all know. But we've all had that one last battle where we thought to ourselves, we were like a bull. And we were snorting and we were stomping our foot, and we were thinking, oh, I'm going to die. We've all had one of those final battles like that with an X in our life. So I can imagine that probably strangling someone takes a little bit of effort. I don't want to know. I don't want to know. But you know what I'm going to do? This is what I'm going to do, and I hope you do it too. I'm going to funnel that energy that I'm going to would otherwise use doing something wrong, doing something impulsive. And I'm going to use that to maybe fly a little lighter. You know, to do something good. You know, I don't know that you can ever really equal something like that out. People do some horrifying things. You guys know that. You watch the news, you read the newspaper, you look at your computer, you go through Facebook feeds, you go to websites, you read blogs, you read articles. I know you know. People do some god-awful horrid things. They do. They do. But I gotta think that there are some people out there doing some fabulous things. The sad part is, a lot of times they don't make the news. They ought to, because it would really help to balance things out. You know, you gotta think that every once in a while somebody finds a dog in a bag and takes it and rescues it. It doesn't nullify that it happened to begin with. It doesn't nullify it. It doesn't change the fact that it happened. Does it make it better? Maybe it rights a little bit of the wrong that happened when somebody made that poor decision and decided that they were going to do something that most of us would find unspeakable. Most of us would find unthinkable. At least I hope most of us feel that way. But, you know, guys, I got to tell you, I got like 5 minutes left, and if you're still hanging on through stupid, sad hour here in upstate New York, I got to thank you. Because if somebody were to ask me 10 minutes from now, what did you talk about on your radio show, I'm pretty sure I'm going to say, you know what? I don't have a clue. Because I took a couple of Advil, and I drank a cup of coffee, and I just rolled with it. Because I knew I wanted to talk about things that I found important. And I realized that I spent most of this hour talking about something that happened to me in the last couple of weeks, and that was losing 2 friends who I cared about very, very much. Very sad that they are gone. I appreciate the fact that you guys hung on and listened to all that. But if you take anything away from this, and I hope that you do, because I do like to talk. You know, I'm a theater person, I'm a singer, you know, obviously I'm a show host. You know, I've done book readings, and I've done talks and presentations, and I do like to talk. I think that it's almost a lost form of communication. I mean, we text with our phones. We almost don't need to talk anymore, so I do like to talk. But you know what? I appreciate the fact that you guys listen. And if you take anything away from this, that's what I started to say when I got off on the stupid Sam tangent again. You know what? I hope that if you're grieving, if you've lost someone two-legged or four-legged recently like I have, that you realize that you're not alone. It's very, very isolating. And sadly, we've seen it recently in the news. We've seen it with the passing of the beloved Robin. We all know a person who has passed grief, because sometimes it becomes more than someone can bear. But reach out to somebody. Somebody's going to get tired of hearing the fluffy story. But you know what? Don't be afraid to say to someone, I need you. Because, guys, I had to do that. I had to do that a lot in the last couple of weeks. And usually I'm the person hearing it. So it's very hard for me to say, I need you. It's very hard for me to look at someone and say that. To say, I am weak right now. I need your strength to get me through this. You should never be afraid to say that. If you're feeling that sense of isolation, a sense of sadness where you don't feel like you can possibly move on, where it hurts to breathe, and you can't imagine staying in this life for 1 minute, reach out to someone. Please do that, because there are people out there in your circle, the people with whom you share your life, who are willing to be there for you. Some people won't step up, and sadly, when you go through difficult times in your life, guys, I'll tell you, it sorts out the boys from the men. It really does. Not to use an old expression, and I'm not saying that all you have in your life are boys and men. It really does. It sorts out the people who are going to be there from the people who are not. You have to embrace the people who are going to be there. You know what? Let them comfort you. They want to do that. You know that, especially if you're like me and you're always doing the comforting. How good does it feel to be there for your friend? It feels great. So let your friend have that experience and do that for you. That's what I've learned in the last 2 weeks. That's the wisdom I want to impart on you. That's the part of my life that makes me who I am, that I want to share with the people who have taken 55 minutes out of their busy life, chosen to listen to Wicked Naked. That's what I want to leave you with. Ask for the help. Forgive the people who can't find the time to be there. Some of them won't step up, guys, but some of them will. And I'll tell you something. When the grief abates a little bit, when the wound is small enough that now it can be covered by a Band-Aid instead of a tarp, take a minute to say to your friend, thank you for being there when I needed you. And when your friend needs you, make sure that you reciprocate. Because you know what? Being a friend is about being a good friend to someone else. When they need you, not just when you need them. So, you know what? That's what I learned in the last 2 weeks. I know I rambled a bit tonight, guys. I appreciate you coping with me because it has been a difficult 2 weeks. And I needed to talk about this because you know what? 10 minutes from now, I might not remember what I talked about. But I know I will feel better because I said it. I told the story. I dealt with it as I heard the words. Maybe it helped some of you who've been through a similar thing. I hope that it did. I've got guests lined up for the next, I think, 3 shows. So I really hope that you guys will come back and tune in again to Wicked Naked. I got to tell you, it's that time of the night when I'm going to sign off. I think the DTM Wicked Radio family, guys, I'll tell you, can't tell you how much I needed this show tonight. So thank you. Thank you for being there tonight. Thank you for being there every time I get to do this. And I am so glad you invited me to be part of this family. You are a support system for me as well, and I thank you and I love you guys. You know what? I'll be back in 2 weeks, guys. Until then, you know what? Tell somebody how much they mean to you. Tell your friend that you love them. You know what? Be a good friend and let your friend be a good friend to you. So, guys, I'm going to come back in 2 weeks. I have a great guest. Analyzing that, so I'm not going to make the announcement just yet, but I'm really hoping that he'll come up. So, guys, take care. Take good care. Take good care of yourself. Take good care of the people with whom you share your life, and take good care of your world. Be good, and I will see you again right here in 2 weeks. Good night.